American author Tess Garrison once stated, "Evil never dies, it just takes a new face." And over the last several decades, evil has taken the face of Islamic terrorism, which itself has changed faces from the Taliban to Al-Qaeda to currently the Islamic State. And the Islamic State has been working hard to spread their reign of terror across the world. And one country that has gotten hit particularly hard by the Islamic State is the country of Turkey. Because NPR on February 27th of 2017 tells us that the Islamic State has been working to expand their influence into the country of Turkey, it's become important to ask today's question. Who benefits most politically from Islamic State terrorist acts in Turkey? And we see that the answer is Turkish President Recep Erdogan for three main reasons. First, because he is gaining power. Second, because of the Euphrates Shield operation. And finally, because of the internet restrictions. Which brings us to first, how President Recep Erdogan benefits most politically because he is gaining power. Now, to fully understand this situation in Turkey, we need to go back into July of 2016. In July, the military of Turkey staged a coup against the then-sitting President Recep Erdogan and tried taking control of the government. But President Recep Erdogan has been through coups before and was able to remain in power. But ever since then, he has went on a mad power grab and a mass purge of government employees. The Washington Post on February 26th of 2017 explains that since the coup, President Erdogan has fired some 115,000 government employees and detained an additional 36,000 on no charges. Now, following the coup, the Islamic State saw it as the perfect opportunity to try to expand their influence into Turkey during all of their political turmoil. And ever since then, attacks on Turkey by the Islamic State have been almost daily. And the people of Turkey as a whole have become scared and have been looking for someone to lead them through these dark times. And currently, because President Recep Erdogan has fired almost every other major political figure, there are very few people for them to turn to. The BBC on February 22nd of 2017 explains that the nation as a whole has been looking for someone to lead them, and for this they have turned to President Recep Erdogan. Now, as we've seen, President Recep Erdogan has not only been gaining power throughout the Turkish government, but he has also been gaining the people's trust. And for the most part, he has been delivering on his promises. Which brings us to second, how President Recep Erdogan benefits most politically because of the Euphrates Shield operation. Now, as we've seen, the Islamic State attacks have been getting worse and worse against Turkey over the last year. And eventually the Turkish government, led by President Recep Erdogan, finally had enough. So President Recep Erdogan signed into law a military campaign to stop the Islamic State. The Economist on February 28th of 2017 explains that in December of 2016, President Erdogan signed into the Euphrates Shield operation, which was an attack against Islamic State fighters on the border of Turkey and Syria. And for the most part, this operation has been extremely successful, and President Recep Erdogan has been on many televised interviews stating that this military operation was a complete success. The Guardian on February 24th of 2017 explains that since the Euphrates Shield operation began in December, 748 people have been detained on charges of links to the Islamic State. Now, as we've previously seen, the people have been turning towards President Recep Erdogan to lead them through this dangerous times with the Islamic State. And for the most part, he has delivered on his promise, and because of this, he has become the shining star of Turkey. But unfortunately, he faces very little political opposition. Which brings us to, finally, how President Recep Erdogan benefits most politically because of the internet restrictions. Now, this fight with the Islamic State with Turkey is not completely one-sided. Eventually, throughout the course of the fighting, the Islamic State captured two major Turkish government employees and detained them for several weeks before burning them alive while live-streaming the whole event on social media. And the Turkish government was not a big fan of this. The Los Angeles Times on February 28th of 2017 explains that the Turkish government, led by President Erdogan, has put major restrictions on social media and held these restrictions in place ever since this video was posted. Now, this is a major problem because many people in Turkey, much like here in the United States, rely on such social media sites as Twitter to find a lot of their news. And ever since then, they've had very little access to additional news sources, which is a shame because they have very few other places to turn. The New York Times on February 21st of 2017 explains that since the coup, President Recep Erdogan has shut down some 150 news outlets in the country of Turkey, which leaves very few places for people to turn for their news since this internet restriction. And the only place they have left to turn is the state-run news agencies, where President Recep Erdogan can spread his propaganda to the people of Turkey, and they have no other opposing opinions to deny any of their facts. Thus, when we return to today's question, who benefits most politically from Islamic State terrorist acts in Turkey? And we see that the answer is Turkish President Recep Erdogan for three main reasons. First, because he is gaining power. Second, because of the Euphrates Shield operation. And finally, because of the internet restrictions. Now, as we've seen, the American author Tess Garrison was right. Over the last several years, evil has taken the face of Islamic terrorism, which itself has changed from the Taliban to Al-Qaeda to currently the Islamic State. And the Islamic State has been working hard to spread their reign of terror across the world. And one country that has gotten hit particularly hard by the evils of the Islamic State is the country of Turkey. But on the flip side of things, one person who has benefited immensely from all this carnage happening in the country of Turkey is their president, Recep Erdogan, who could benefit from Islamic State fighting, potentially for years to come.